The breaking point. Commander Sarah Chen stood motionless on the observation deck of what remained of the North American Defense Command, watching as another wave of Krillak's warships descended through Earth's atmosphere. The alien vessels cut through the clouds like obsidian knives, their hulls absorbing rather than reflecting sunlight. Unlike human spacecraft with their practical, utilitarian designs, these were weapons of psychological warfare as much as physical destruction. Sleek, predatory shapes that inspired terror before they fired a single shot. "Status report," she demanded, her voice betraying none of the desperation churning in her gut. Lieutenant Xavier Diaz's fingers flew across his console. "Global defense networks at 17% capacity. Commander, European Command confirms total communications blackout in sectors 3 through 7. Asian Alliance forces report loss of all orbital platforms." Sarah closed her eyes briefly. 3 weeks. That's all it had taken for the most advanced military force humanity had ever assembled to be reduced to scattered pockets of resistance. 3 weeks since the Krillak's Armada had appeared without warning at the edge of the solar system, moving with impossible speed past the outer planetary defenses. "And the civilian evacuations?" she asked, already dreading the answer. "Underground shelters in major cities are at capacity," Xavier replied, his dark eyes reflecting the red emergency lighting that bathed the command center. "Rural relocation efforts continue, but..." He hesitated. "The latest Krillak's landing parties are specifically targeting evacuation routes." Of course they were. The Krillak's weren't just conquerors, they were hunters. Tactical analysis had quickly revealed their preference for breaking resistance through psychological means rather than brute force. Why waste resources destroying infrastructure when you could break a species' will to fight? "The Secretary General is on Secure Channel 1, another officer announced. "Priority Alpha." Sarah nodded and moved to the private communications booth. The face that appeared on her screen looked 10 years older than it had when the invasion began. Secretary General Immerse had been a powerful, commanding presence with a booming voice and unwavering confidence. Now his eyes were sunken, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Commander Chen, I'll be brief. The Security Council has voted. We're implementing Phantom Protocol." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "Sir, that's still experimental. The risks are irrelevant now." Immerse cut her off. "We've lost 90% of conventional military capability. The Krillak's have established processing centers in 47 major cities. They're beginning resource extraction operations in Africa and South America." He leaned closer to the camera. "This isn't a war anymore, Commander. It's an extinction event." She couldn't argue with his assessment. The Krillak's empire had a well-documented history, gleaned from the few alien species who had established contact with Earth before the invasion. They didn't merely conquer, they consumed, stripping planets of resources and reducing native populations to slave labor until nothing of value remained. "The first Phantom units are ready," Immerse continued. "You've been selected to coordinate the global counteroffensive." "How many?" Sarah asked. 2,000 operatives worldwide. "It's not much, but each one is worth a battalion of conventional forces." A bitter smile crossed his face. "At least, that's what your research team claimed." The Phantom Protocol. Sarah had helped develop it, a last-resort defensive measure combining cutting-edge biotechnology, neural enhancements, and experimental weaponry. Human soldiers pushed beyond normal physical and psychological limits, equipped with technology reverse-engineered from alien artifacts recovered over decades of secret research. Deadly, efficient, and with capabilities that bordered on the superhuman. "Transmission incoming from the Krillak's command ship." Xavier's voice came through the intercom. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Sarah ordered, returning to the main command center. The massive central screen flickered, then filled with the image of Supreme Commander Vex Hera, the 7-foot-tall leader of the Krillak's invasion force. His iridescent exoskeleton gleamed under the lights of his command center, faceted eyes reflecting multiple angles of the camera. People of Earth. The translation software rendered his clicking speech into eerily smooth English. Your military forces have been decimated. Your governments have collapsed. Resistance serves no purpose but to increase your suffering. The camera panned out, revealing a group of captured human soldiers kneeling before him. Sarah recognized the uniform of the Global Coalition's elite strike team, soldiers who had been deployed to defend the last remaining military stronghold in Europe. These warriors fought with admirable courage, Hera continued. Their deaths will be honorable. Sarah wanted to look away but forced herself to watch as the Supreme Commander executed the prisoners one by one. This broadcast was being shown worldwide. Another psychological tactic to break humanity's will. Surrender now, and the civilian population will be treated according to the Krillix protocols of conquest. Continued resistance will result in cleansing measures. The alien commander's mandibles clicked in what analysts had determined was their equivalent of a smile. You have 6 Earth hours to comply. The screen went dark. They think they've won, Sarah said quietly. Around her, the command staff stood in stunned silence, the weight of what they'd witnessed crushing whatever hope remained. They believe we're broken. She straightened her shoulders and raised her voice, infusing it with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. Get me a secure link to all Phantom Protocol facilities. Authorization, Chen, Alpha 709. Link established. Xavier confirmed after a moment, surprise evident in his voice. Like most of the staff, he hadn't been briefed on the Phantom Protocol. This is Commander Sarah Chen. Phantom Protocol is now active. I repeat, Phantom Protocol is now active. Deploy all units to designated primary targets. Operation Lazarus begins in 3 hours. She turned to face her staff. The Krillix believe they understand humanity. They think they know our limitations, our breaking point. A cold smile crossed her face. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Half a world away, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains in a facility that didn't officially exist, Captain Marcus Reed opened his eyes as the activation signal pulsed through his neural implant. Around him, in identical suspension chambers, the other members of Phantom Squad Alpha began to stir. 50 of the most lethal soldiers ever produced by humanity, enhanced beyond recognition. Phantom Protocol activated. A calm voice announced over the facility speakers. All units prepare for deployment. Marcus disconnected the monitoring cables from his body and stepped out of the suspension chamber. His muscles should have been atrophied after weeks of inactivity, but the nanomachines coursing through his bloodstream had maintained perfect muscle tone. He felt power thrumming through his body, strength and speed, and reflexes far beyond what he possessed before the enhancements. About damn time, growled Lieutenant Daria Volkova as she emerged from her own chamber. The neural interface ports visible at the base of her skull gleamed under the harsh facility lights. I was starting to think they'd let us sleep through the whole war. Careful what you wish for, Marcus replied, rolling his shoulders. Briefing in 5 minutes. Let's move. As the members of Phantom Squad Alpha assembled in the briefing room, Dr. Eleanor Park, the civilian scientist who had headed the Phantom Protocol's development, addressed them from a holographic projection. Her expression was grim. The situation is worse than anticipated, she began without preamble. Conventional military forces have been effectively neutralized. The Krillix control approximately 60% of Earth's surface, including most major population centers. She waved a hand, bringing up a global tactical display showing Krillix-controlled territories in red. Most of the map was crimson. Your mission is simple but vital. You will deploy to key Krillix command centers and disrupt their operational capability by any means necessary. This isn't about winning battles. It's about creating chaos, destroying their command structure, and buying time for the remaining free territories to regroup. Marcus studied the targets assigned to his squad, a primary Krillix processing center established in what had been downtown Chicago. Intelligence suggested it contained a regional command node coordinating Krillix forces across the entire Midwest. What about civilians in occupied territories? He asked. Dr. Park's expression tightened. Satellite reconnaissance indicates the Krillaks are establishing processing centers. We don't know exactly what happens inside, but based on their patterns on other worlds. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what the Krillaks did to conquered populations. Rules of engagement, Lieutenant Volkova asked, her voice cold and professional. There are no rules anymore, Dr. Park replied simply. Humanity is fighting for survival. Use whatever means necessary. As the briefing concluded, Marcus led his squad to the armory where they were equipped with the most advanced weapons ever developed. Plasma rifles that could cut through Krillak's armor, adaptive camouflage suits that rendered them nearly invisible, and neural disruptors specifically calibrated to the alien nervous system. 1 hour to deployment, the facility AI announced as they completed preparations. Marcus addressed his squad, men and women who had voluntarily undergone experimental procedures that had killed 30% of candidates during development. They had sacrificed their humanity in increments, becoming something both more and less than human in the process. The Krillaks think they've won, he told them, echoing Commander Chen's words without knowing it. They believe victory is theirs. Our job is to show them just how wrong they are. On screens throughout the facility, they watched as Supreme Commander Vex Hera broadcast his victory speech, declaring Earth a new province of the Krillak's empire and promising that resistance was futile. They have no idea what's coming, Marcus said, checking his weapons one final time. Let's go hunt some bugs. Humanity unleashed. The Krillak's regional commander Versailles moved through the human city they had designated as Processing Hub 7, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. What the humans had once called Chicago was being efficiently transformed under Krillak's supervision. The weak architecture of human buildings was being reinforced with Krillak's biomaterial, the inefficient grid systems rewired to support their superior technology. Most satisfying of all was the compliance of the captured humans. After the global broadcast of their military's execution, resistance had dropped by 78%, according to the behavior analysis algorithms. Humans were predictable, like most species the Krillaks had encountered. Show them the futility of resistance, demonstrate superior force, and their survival instinct would overcome their pride. Perimeter security reports all clear, Commander, her second-in-command reported, antennae twitching in the gesture of formal communication. The human authorities have delivered the requested population groups for processing. Excellent, Versailles responded. Begin Phase 2 implementation. I want resource extraction facilities operational within. The explosion cut off her words, the shock wave throwing her against the command console. Warning signals blared as emergency lighting bathed the command center in pulsing crimson. Report, she demanded, regaining her footing. Perimeter breach in sectors 2, 5, and 8 came the frantic response. Multiple hostiles penetrating defensive lines. Impossible, Versailles hissed. Human military forces have been neutralized. The security feeds showed only brief flashes of movement. Dark shapes moving with impossible speed through Krillak's defensive positions. Whatever these attackers were, they weren't conventional human soldiers. Deploy elite guard units, she ordered. Lock down the processing chambers. In the chaos of the next few minutes, Versailles realized this wasn't merely a desperate last stand by remaining human forces. This was something else entirely. A coordinated precision assault by combatants with capabilities far beyond normal human parameters. Outside the command center, Captain Marcus Reed moved through the Krillak's defensive positions like a ghost. The adaptive camouflage of his combat suit bent light around him, rendering him nearly invisible to both electronic sensors and biological eyes. The neural interface connected to his visual cortex highlighted enemy positions, structural weaknesses, and optimal attack vectors in real time. Alpha Team, status report, he subvocalized, the words transmitted directly to his squad through their neural links. East Quadrant secure, Lieutenant Volkova replied. 27 hostiles neutralized. Minimal resistance. South approach cleared. came another response. Civilian processing chambers located. Hundreds of humans inside those pods, Captain. They're being altered somehow. Marcus pushed away the surge of rage that threatened his focus. Stay on mission. Primary target is the command node. Echo and Delta teams will handle civilian extraction. He moved silently through the alien structure, noting how the Krillaks had already begun transforming human architecture into their own disturbing blend of technology and biological components. The walls pulsed with what appeared to be vascular systems, carrying nutrients and information simultaneously through the modified building. 4 Krillaks guards appeared around a corner, their chitinous armor gleaming under the emergency lights. Before they could raise their weapons, Marcus had already calculated trajectories and fired 4 plasma bolts that found the weak points in their exoskeletons with surgical precision. Command center ahead, his neural interface indicated. High-value target detected. Through the reinforced doors, Versailles was frantically sending distress signals to the Krillaks fleet. Their preliminary invasion had been based on thorough intelligence about Earth's military capabilities, intelligence that had clearly been catastrophically incomplete. Supreme Commander, she reported urgently, unknown human combatants have breached multiple processing hubs globally. They possess technology and capabilities significantly beyond established parameters. The response from Supreme Commander Vex Hera was immediate and harsh. Impossible. Contain this minor insurrection immediately. This is not a minor. Versailles' transmission cut off as the command center doors exploded inward. Marcus entered the room in a combat role, plasma rifle firing in controlled bursts that eliminated the Krillaks operators with ruthless efficiency. As he rose to his feet, he found himself face to face with the regional commander, a Krillaks nearly 8 feet tall with the distinctive red markings of their leadership caste. Impossible, Versailles hissed, her translator converting the clicks and chittering into English. Human soldiers can it. That's your first mistake, Marcus replied calmly, raising his weapon. Assuming you know what humans are capable of. The plasma bolt took Versailles between her compound eyes, ending her assessment of human capabilities permanently. Marcus moved to the command console, his neural interface allowing him to interpret and interact with the alien technology. Command center secure, he reported. Uploading virus package now. The virus, developed by Earth's best programmers using fragments of recovered Krillaks code, would spread through their network, disrupting communications and command protocols across their entire invasion force. Captain, Lieutenant Volkova's voice came through the neural link. You need to see the processing chambers. Leaving a skeleton crew to secure the command center, Marcus made his way to the lower levels where the Krillaks had established their mysterious processing operation. What he found there froze the blood in his veins. Hundreds of humans suspended in translucent pods, their bodies being systematically altered, implants being grafted to nervous systems, strange devices attached to spinal columns. The Krillaks weren't just conquering Earth. They were converting its population into something new. They're creating slaves. Dr. Park's voice came through his neural link as the squad transmitted images back to command. Not just workers, these modifications suggest neural control. They're turning humans into living components of their war machine. Can the process be reversed? Marcus asked, watching as Phantom operatives began freeing those who hadn't yet undergone extensive modifications. Unknown, Dr. Park replied grimly. But this confirms why we couldn't afford to lose this war. Similar scenes were playing out across the globe as Phantom squads struck Krillak strongholds simultaneously. 2,000 enhanced soldiers against an alien army of millions should have been suicide. But the Phantom operatives weren't fighting a conventional war. They were conducting surgical strikes against command nodes, communication hubs, and processing centers, creating cascading failures through the Krillaks occupation force. On board the Krillaks flagship in high Earth orbit, Supreme Commander Vex Hera watched in growing fury as reports of successful human counterattacks flooded in from all sectors. Impossible, he raged, smashing a communication console with one powerful limb. Their military capability was thoroughly assessed. There was no indication of this technology, these enhanced soldiers. His intelligence officer trembled visibly, antennae flat against his head in the posture of extreme submission. The capability appears to have been deeply classified. Supreme Commander, our infiltration protocols never detected. Vexhera killed the officer with a casual swipe of his claws, then turned to his command staff. Prepare orbital bombardment protocols. If we cannot control this planet, we will sterilize it. But the Phantom Protocol had anticipated this reaction. As the Krillex flagship prepared its weapons systems, a stealth shuttle approached, carrying a special Phantom team led by Commander Sarah Chen herself. "I've studied every inch of these ships," she told her team of 12 enhanced operatives as they prepared to breach the hull. "Their command structure is hierarchical and inflexible. Remove Vexhera, and their entire invasion force will fall into disarray." The breach was swift and violent. While the Krillex were formidable warriors, they had evolved for overwhelming force, not close-quarters combat against enhanced human soldiers with neural reflexes and strength augmentation. Sarah fought her way to the bridge level, her augmented muscles and reinforced skeleton allowing her to match the alien's natural strength. The neural enhancements processed battlefield information faster than conscious thought, turning her into something beyond human, a perfect fusion of tactical computer and trained killer. When she finally faced Supreme Commander Vexhera, the alien leader seemed genuinely bewildered. "What are you?" he demanded, his translator struggling to convey his confusion. Sarah smiled coldly as she raised her plasma rifle. "We're humanity's response to extinction. You should have studied our history more carefully. Humans don't break. We evolve." The death of Supreme Commander Vexhera marked the turning point in the war. As predicted, the rigid Krillex command structure faltered without central leadership. The virus planted in their network completed the disruption, turning their advanced technology against them. Within 72 hours, Earth's conventional military forces, regrouped under Phantom coordination, began the systematic elimination of stranded Krillex forces. The alien fleet, now in disarray, retreated beyond the solar system, transmitting warnings about the unexpected capabilities of Earth's defenders. 6 months later, Commander Sarah Chen stood before the newly reformed United Earth Council. The war had changed humanity irrevocably. The Phantom Protocol, originally intended as a last resort, had become the foundation for Earth's new defense strategy. "The Krillex will return," she told the assembled leaders. "And they won't be alone. Our victory has put us on the galactic map, and not in a way that ensures our safety." The council chamber was silent as her words sank in. Humanity had survived its first interstellar war, but at a cost. The Phantom soldiers, those who had sacrificed portions of their humanity to save their species, now represented both humanity's greatest defense and a controversial new direction for human evolution. "Then we'll be ready," replied the council chairperson. The Krillex thought victory was theirs until Earth's deadliest soldiers entered the field. "Next time, we won't wait until we're on the brink of extinction to show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of." In a rehabilitation facility halfway around the world, Captain Marcus Reed watched the council proceedings on a view screen, his enhanced body still adjusting to peacetime. The nanomechanes in his bloodstream had been designed for war, not civilian life. Like many Phantom soldiers, he struggled with the question of what he had become and where he belonged in the world he had helped save. Was it worth it? Asked Lieutenant Volkova from the bed next to his, her own body covered in monitoring equipment as doctors tried to stabilize the more extreme enhancements. Marcus thought about the processing chambers, the civilians they had rescued, the planet they had saved from consumption by an interstellar empire that had never known defeat until it encountered humanity. "Ask me again in 100 years, he replied, looking out at the sky. No longer just the boundary of Earth's atmosphere, but the frontier of humanity's new place in a dangerous galaxy. But I think we've just changed the course of human history. As if responding to his words, a notification appeared on his neural interface, a new message from Commander Chen. The Phantom Protocol wasn't being deactivated as originally planned. It was being expanded. Humanity had learned a crucial lesson. In a universe filled with threats, adaptation wasn't just an advantage, it was survival. The Krillaks had thought victory was theirs, never realizing they had awakened something far deadlier than they could have imagined. Humanity's indomitable will to survive, by any means necessary.